Welcome to another interview with El Vocero Hispano. Carol Glanville is currently the state representative for the 74th District, and she is currently seeking her re-election, but for the 84th District. There has been some redistricting, so that kind of does cover different areas, but she is here today to speak to us a little bit about what those areas are. If she would become your state representative once again, what are some of the different issues she would tackle, and how her campaigning has basically been going so far since we are just one day away from elections. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Sure, es un placer.
Yeah. So I just wanted to start off, I did mention that you're currently state rep for the 74th District. Yep. So that's one area, but you're seeking re-election for the 84th District.
Right.
So what are the differences between those two areas that you...
Yeah, so the 74th currently is Granville, Walker, and then straight up North Kent County all the way to the county line at Newaygo and Kent. So it covers like Cedar Springs and Sparta and that whole area. And the new district, it keeps Granville and Walker, and then turns left into the northwest side of Grand Rapids. So roughly over to College and down to Fulton. I have a couple areas down by the zoo. So it's kind of a little bit of a curvy line there, but that's kind of the rough layout of where I'll be representing.
Okay, yeah. So the 84th District, is it something different that you were looking for? Is it kind of the same, it's just changed numbers, or how did that work?
Yeah, so, the redistricting happens every time we have a census, right? And then with the Voters Not Politicians effort that we had here in the state of Michigan, we voted as a state to allow a Citizens Redistricting Commission. So typically, in the past, it had been governed by the political parties. And so in this case, because we had citizens doing the redistricting, we were able to design really fair maps so that we have competitive seats in most of these areas where before you might have seen a heavier lean towards the Republican Party, because as the majority party, they had decided the lines. Yeah. And so this time we're seeing it a little bit differently, and I'm really pleased. I think the way my district came together, Granville, Walker, and Northwest Grand Rapids, that just makes a lot more sense to me in terms of keeping it like a suburban, urban. We have similar interests in those areas. I mean, certainly, there are differences, but it's a lot more cohesive than if we had, than getting up into the more rural areas where you have just, a very separate sense of maybe the needs of the community. So, and then I'm grew up in Wyoming, born and raised there. I have lived on the west side, and so it feels like home to me. So I really enjoy, doing the campaigning, meeting the folks who live there, and it just feels like home. So it feels really nice and connected to be able to represent that area.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, I think redistricting did definitely kind of help make things more equally, we could say. Yeah. So there's a great. That's a great opportunity for different candidates to kind of seek and, kind of be fair and equal. Yeah. But you also were able to flip a certain district. So that district was held by Republicans since the 1993, I believe. So how was that experience for you?
Yeah, oh my gosh, it was amazing. So we had a special election just this spring. There was an empty seat. So there was a little shuffling around, and our state rep had moved into the Senate, and so that left a seat open midterm. And so they called a special election, and I originally kind of threw my hat in the ring so that with an eye to this election, knowing that this seat would be more competitive. But as the campaign went on, there just was a groundswell of support for me and my candidacy, and we were able to win that district. It was I'm a Democrat, so it was a 40% Democrat district, so the Republicans had the advantage at 60-40, and we were able to win the district by 52%. Okay. So I was really pleased to just understand that there is, we see so much like real separation in political parties and ideology these days, and it was just really motivating and inspiring to know that we could really bring people together around a candidate, which was me.
Well, congratulations on that. I know it probably seems hard and impossible sometimes, but you were able to do it, and that's great. As state rep, I know it's been just a few years or a couple years, but
couple months, actually.
yeah. Oh my gosh, yes. So how has that experience been with you or for you? I know it's just a short time, but how has it been?
Yeah, it's been, it's just been, it's been so quick. I mean, I had to, I jumped right in just before we voted on the budget this summer. And then over the summer, I don't know you're aware, but session was canceled for a lot of the summer. And so we haven't really been in session doing a lot of voting, which, is good and bad. There's still work, of course, being done. We work with our constituents, but just for me, getting used to being in Lansing and doing the work, it's kind of nice that it's been a little bit slow so that I can really build the relationships that are important to, having the influence I need to get good things done here for West Michigan. So, it's been kind of a crazy ride, but I'm really enjoying it.
Okay. What are some of the issues that you would be focusing on if you were to be reelected?
Yeah, so in the reelection, I'm an educator, and that's my profession. And so I've been a teacher and an administrator. I've worked in public and private schools. I have a strong background in ELL, working with families, not only to teach parents or adults ESL, but then also training teachers on how to work with kids in the schools. So all of that together, for me, that's my passion, and I want to continue to build up our public schools. So that's definitely a focus that I have. Aside from that, we often hear about the kind of typical, jobs and things like that. So again, those are kind of some of the standard things that come up. But for me, I've also learned since I've been, just the short time I've been in the House, there are some real concerns around auto no fault that we have not yet addressed, and that's something that I really want to be able to dig into and fix. A lot of people are suffering because of the reforms that we did, and we haven't moved forward in adjusting those. So I think that's something to take a look at. I really want us to visit common sense gun reform. Voters overwhelmingly approve, support safe storage laws, background checks, and things like that. And that's something that I think, we should be able to get across the line. That, and I'm also really engaged in what we do with Grand Rapids. Is redesigning the river and things like that, right? And I've been engaged with our trails programs here. So I'm just excited to continue to grow. I think Grand Rapids is growing in the right direction in terms of not only are we expanding with job and economic opportunity, but we're really mindful of keeping West Michigan and Grand Rapids, taking advantage of the natural resources that we have here, and I want to make sure that we continue to do that as well, so that people can have a whole life here.
Yeah, I think those are all great issues. There's a lot of work to be done, but I think those are one of the main ones that we've been touching base on. And just because we target a lot of the Hispanic community, that was one of my questions too. How would you kind of influence the whole driver's licenses for all, if you were to be reelected? How could you support this community?
Yeah, I mean, I support the effort of driver's licenses for all. We were talking a little bit before. I have a really strong background in having worked with the Hispanic community, particularly immigrant community in the city of Chicago. I've been engaged off and on in, Dreamers and DACA, and, helping to promote and support the efforts of, giving our immigrants their due rights. And I think, this issue of driver's licenses, so many people don't understand, what exactly it means to have a driver's license and how necessary it is to have that ID for just the simplest things in life. And I think it's people tend to make a more of an issue out of it than it is. And so I would like to be able to help folks understand the benefits of making sure that everybody has access to an ID and driver's license and auto insurance and all those things. So certainly supportive, and looking to however I can be engaged in that work.
Yeah, like you mentioned, it's I guess we could say a basic need that
It
they
is.
kind of need because, I mean, to go to work, go
Yeah.
take their kids to school, daycare. There's a lot of different scenarios that they need their license. So
Yeah, and not just to drive a car, but like to have an identification that they
Yes.
can use then for, those kinds of situations. So it's just,
yeah, I know it's a process, but
It
we
is.
do appreciate your support. I know it is a process. A lot of people have been kind of impatient. I understand them. It's been
Yeah.
many years already,
Yep.
but I think that's why there's that importance of this election too. So speaking of that, why do you believe that the community should vote for you? Like,
Well, I think the community should vote for me because as I mentioned, I mean, I have a deep-seated understanding of the Hispanic community, and I mean, for years. Like I said, this has been something I've done over the course of my career for 20-some years. So understanding how that has evolved, and so I think I have something to offer there. Aside from that, as a candidate, I tell folks, I've always been engaged in my community, in the people around me, and I want to continue to do that kind of work. And I think that's one of the things that separates me from my opponent, just that I have that background, not just professionally, but I've always volunteered. I've always, like I said, been engaged in my community in different areas and supporting. So I feel like I have a broader perspective overall than my opponent does of how to work with folks, especially as we're trying to bring people to the table and get some good things done and move forward. So.
Yeah, and you were also a Walker City Commissioner. So how did that experience lead you to want to become representative?
Yeah, so when I started in Walker, one of the first experiences I had was a legislative breakfast kind of event. So what that entails, of course, is that all of our leaders in Walker, and this was very specific to Walker, so it was our mayor, county commission, state senate, on up the line to federal congressional representative for that area, came in to give us kind of a summary of what's going on, that sort of thing. And I noticed at that time, as I was sitting listening, it was a table of representatives who all looked exactly the same.
Yeah.
And they were all from one political party. And so I kind of got it in my head that this is not representation. Like there's no difference in gender, there's no difference in race, there's no difference in political ideology. So there is a wide group of people in this area who are not being represented. And so I just, at that time, decided, that this was something I wanted to support and work towards. And it doesn't necessarily have to be me. It just kind of came that way, as I continued that work. But I would love to bring others along with me. And expand that vision for not just Walker, but my new district as well. Like we need to do a better job of including our entire community in leading the community. And that's something that I'm really passionate about. So.
Yeah, for sure.
So which makes me really happy to be here talking to you.
Yeah, we were talking about the connections that you have had with the Hispanic community and other Hispanic businesses that are here locally. So I think it's great that you're a state rep right now, and hopefully you do get reelected. I feel like you would be that voice for those underrepresented to some extent too. So
and like I said, to be able to bring others up then with me or behind me, who comes next. I think we need to, like I said, make a real effort to expand that.
Yeah, and then just one last question is, I know that there's a lot of, specifically in Grand Rapids, I know there's a lot of diverse schools that have, different vulnerable communities, minority communities. So as state representative, how would you kind of provide those necessities that they probably can't get to for being a minority within the schools?
Within the schools? Well, I'm really excited. Under Governor Gretchen Whitmer, we have been able to expand first we closed the spending gap, and then we've been able to expand the per pupil spending amount year over year to historic amounts now. And there's also extra money in the budget for mental health and special ed services. And so I think some of that gets at what you're talking about because, many of the challenges that our minority communities face are systemic, right? It's because of the way the system has been designed over decades. And so if we're putting a little extra investment into areas that support, mental health, wraparound family services, and things like that, that will help those families to get lifted up and those schools to be lifted up. I'm excited. I've had the opportunity to work, I know in the last couple of years there was a grant program specifically to help teachers get additional training in bilingual and ESL certification. And I was able to work in that program and help train teachers in that. And I think that's another really important piece, because it's not just about, of course it's about teaching the students.
Yeah.
But beyond that, we really went into how to work with families. Families who are refugee families, families that are immigrant families, that don't understand maybe the school system, and how we connect with those families better. And work with them in such a way that we can not just lift up the children, but lift up the whole family. And I think that's another place as schools we need to make sure we're building out that diversity and equity and supporting that at an administrative level.
Yeah, and I think it's a great point, a great opportunity that was given. There's always that language barrier, and I think that there's some parents that don't. They probably do have concerns. They just don't know how to address them to their students or their child's teachers. So I think that was great. I think there needs to be more of that as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and it's not just the language, right? It's the culture.
Yeah.
I mean, what parents from other cultures expect is, based on how they were schooled. And if we don't recognize those differences or don't leave room for them, that just creates unnecessary miscommunication and things like that. So it's really we need to really kind of holistically address that and make our schools more welcoming places.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, we're only, I want to say a day, but we're less than 24 hours away from Election Day.
Yes.
So you getting reelected, what would that mean for you, and what would that mean for the community that you represent?
I think as we've been talking, I think, again, my approach to leadership and the work that I do is really people-centered. And I think that is something that we need these days. We really need to focus in on what the work that needs to be done. There's a lot of distraction right now in politics, and a lot of people see very high federal level ideas. But we have a lot of work to do here in the state of Michigan and to do here locally in West Michigan. And some of it is kind of low-hanging fruit that we can just easily get through. And so I think my focus on that kind of community-centered work is something that would benefit my district and would really help us move forward as a state as well. So I hope to have that opportunity. I hope to, have a job after tomorrow. But polls close at 8, so please make sure you get your ballot in, either at your polling place or in the absentee drop box.
Yes. Do not mail it because it's too late for that.
Yes. And you can still register too. You can register the same day. So if you're not a registered voter, certainly you can still do that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much for your time. I know that we're in critical times right now.
Yeah.
Just hours away. So we do wish you the best of luck.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity again. It's great to sit down with you.
Yeah. Yep. Thank you. Yes, as she mentioned, you can still register to vote. You can only do that by going to your clerk's office. If you do have your absentee ballot, do not mail it in. You can drop it off at the mailbox, or not the mailbox, the post office or your clerk's office. So please do not mail that in. It's too late for that. To see if you are registered to vote, you can visit michigan.gov/vote. Elections does take place tomorrow, November 8th. And if you want to learn more about Carol Glanville, you can visit her Facebook at Carol Glanville, or you can visit her website, which is voteglanville.com. For more interviews in English and Spanish, you can visit our website, elvocerous.com, our Facebook, El Vocero Hispano, and our YouTube page, El Vocero Hispano TV.